Big Edie had a riches to rags horror story that still terrifies people to this day. While on her deathbed, her daughter asked if she had any last words. Edie's response was unforgettable. Edith, Big Edie Bouvier Beale, was the reclusive socialite and aunt of First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy. But while her niece and extended family waltzed through the halls of the White House, Big Edie tiptoed around Grey Gardens, her squalid cat sanctuary in the Hamptons. Born into the wealthy and prestigious Bouvier family, Edie was destined to be a socialite. Her father, Major John Verno Bouvier Jr., was a successful New York attorney and judge. The family was firmly entrenched in New York's high society. As a Bouvier, Big Edie was surrounded by wealth, status, and power, and as her family grew, so did her extravagant connections. One of Big Edie's brothers, John Verno Bouvier III, was the father of none other than the future First Lady, Jacqueline Kennedy. However, Big Edie was far from presidential herself. Unlike her well-mannered siblings, Big Edie had a wild streak from the very beginning, stubborn and difficult to control. Her antics were so notorious that Bouvier historian John Davis once attributed them to her French genes, hinting at a natural inclination toward defiance. From the sound of it, she was more used to giving orders than taking them. Big Edie never shied away from grandiose claims about her heritage. During a casual conversation with a neighbor, she reportedly remarked about the Bouviers, "Oh yes, we're all descended from 14th century French kings." Whether fact or fantasy, she carried herself as if she belonged among the nobility and expected to be treated that way. By age 10, Edie had already gained a reputation as a gifted singer and pianist. Though her family expected her to marry well and conform to high society norms, her true passion was music. Big Edie embraced the glitz and glamour of Manhattan's elite circle. Attractive, fashionable, and charming, she became a sought-after guest at society events. However, while she basked in the limelight, someone glowered from the sidelines. Big Edie's father, John Verno Bouvier, had high expectations for his daughter, and they did not include late-night parties and voice lessons. He saw her passion for music and mischief as distractions from her real purpose, securing a respectable marriage. In Big Edie's defense, good men were hard to find. It seemed like she might fulfill her father's hopes after all when she became engaged to Horace R. Bigelow Allen, a promising society man. Their impending marriage had all of New York abuzz, but Big Edie's fairy tale ending never came. In 1916, she and Horace called off their engagement. After the engagement fell apart, Allen fled to the battlefields of World War I. Fortunately, Edie's next engagement wouldn't be quite so scandalous, at least not at first. After her first failed engagement, Big Edie didn't stray far from her father's expectations, at least on paper. In 1917, she married Phelan Beale, a successful attorney 14 years her senior who would go on to become her father's law partner. But despite the picture-perfect match, their marriage would unravel in spectacular fashion. As one of the preeminent society ladies and New York's most eligible bachelorettes, Big Edie's wedding became a major affair. Her nuptials to Phelan Beale at St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City featured an exclusive guest list and became one of the social highlights of the season. Everyone seemed thrilled about the wedding. Everyone except the bride, that is. For most brides, the dress is the highlight of the wedding, but not for Big Edie. Her main concern was the music. She insisted on an extravagant choir and a soprano soloist, ensuring her passion for music took center stage on her big day. She got exactly what she wanted, and then regretted it. Looking back on her wedding day, Big Edie later confessed that as she stood at the altar, she wished she'd been the one performing the soprano solo. Her love for music and performing left little room in her life for anything or anyone else. After their marriage, Big Edie and Bouvier Beale had 3 children together, 2 sons and a daughter named Edith, or Little Edie, to distinguish her from her mother. While her sons would go on to lead conventional lives, Big Edie's daughter would become her closest companion and eventually her partner in a life of eccentricities. Meanwhile, Big Edie refused to become a conventional society wife. Instead, she gained a reputation for being extravagant and passionately devoted to her own interests. Her love of music and performance often took precedence over her marriage, and it wasn't long before cracks began to show. In 1923, Big Edie and Bouvier Beale bought Grey Gardens, a grand estate in the wealthy enclave of East Hampton. Nestled near the ocean, the property was picturesque, but it wasn't just a summer retreat for Big Edie. It became the stage of her most dramatic performances, both on and off stage. Unlike the stiff parlors of her socialite peers, Big Edie's Grey Gardens was a haven for artists and musicians. The enigmatic socialite surrounded herself with creatives and spent her days singing, playing the piano, and indulging in endless conversations about music and art. It was a world of her own making, one that didn't include her husband. Big Edie didn't just play music, she lived for it. She structured her days around practicing her operatic mezzo-soprano voice and entertaining guests. While other society wives played the role of modest hostess, Big Edie always took center stage. Sadly, the spotlight didn't always love her back. Big Edie was never truly satisfied performing for friends and family in her salon. What she really wanted was a professional singing career. To fulfill her fantasies, she hired an accompanist and performed at private parties and intimate venues, convinced she was destined for the stage. When she wasn't captivating audiences with her mezzo-soprano, Big Edie was turning heads with her fashion. While other East Hampton elites draped themselves in pearls and prim suits, she wore whatever she pleased: caftans, turbans, and layers of mismatched fabrics. In fact, she took pride in standing out. For New York's high society, inclusion in the social register was a badge of honor. True to form, however, Big Edie chose to defy convention. She reportedly refused to have her name listed in the vaunted register, causing a scandal among her Hamptons neighbors. It was more than her poor husband could bear. Big Edie's free-spirited ways weren't just an affront to high society, they humiliated her husband. Bouvier Beale thought he had married a respectable Bouvier, only to watch Big Edie fall further into eccentricity. Her flamboyant bohemian lifestyle caused him great embarrassment. His next move left Big Edie uncharacteristically speechless. By 1931, Big Edie's theatrical lifestyle had become too much for her husband to bear. In a shockingly public rebuke of his wife's behavior, Beale separated from Big Edie and retreated to his hunting lodge. Big Edie remained at Grey Gardens alone, where her eccentric behavior only worsened. Following their separation, Beale provided Big Edie with child support, but little else. He refused to pay her alimony, leaving her for the first time in her life in an increasingly precarious financial situation. But Edie was hardly about to let money stop her from living her life. She refused to change her ways, unaware that her lavish lifestyle was about to come crashing down. By 1946, Beale had given up on Big Edie and her increasingly odd behavior. He expressed his exasperation in a blunt telegram. Bouvier Beale ended their marriage from afar, securing the divorce in Mexico. Big Edie barely acknowledged it, perhaps because she didn't believe it was real. Despite the paperwork from Mexico, doubts lingered about whether Big Edie's divorce was legally binding. Since the Catholic Church didn't recognize the split, her daughter, little Edie, dismissed it as a fake Mexican divorce. But little Edie was about to prove just how much she supported her mother in a big way. In July 1952, Big Edie's world shifted again when little Edie returned home after years in Manhattan. What was meant to be a temporary visit quickly became permanent. The two eccentric women would soon find themselves bound together in a life of increasing isolation and wild hope. With her husband gone and financial support dwindling, Big Edie struggled to maintain Grey Gardens, especially with another mouth to feed. The once grand estate became a burden, one she refused to relinquish even as it crumbled around her. She held on, determined to make it work, no matter the cost. Especially since she wasn't the one footing the bill. Even with little Edie's help, Big Edie couldn't keep Grey Gardens afloat and was forced to turn to her reluctant father for assistance. Despite her age, Big Edie's father agreed to give her an annual allowance of $3,500 to keep her head above water, but even he couldn't tolerate her odd behavior for long. Big Edie always sought the spotlight, even when it wasn't hers to claim. Her son's 1942 wedding was no exception. Instead of arriving with the grace expected of the groom's mother, she showed up nearly half an hour late, dressed as if she were making a grand entrance. The stunt left guests whispering, and her father fuming. Her antics at her son's wedding were the last straw. Just 2 days after the ceremony, he rewrote his will, slashing her inheritance from a generous $825,000 to a mere $65,000, and he wasn't done yet. As if cutting her out of the will weren't enough, Big Edie's father went further. Instead of granting her direct access to the remainder of her inheritance, he placed her on a strict monthly allowance of $300, ensuring she couldn't squander it on music, parties, or worse, more eccentric fashion. With money running out, Big Edie resorted to desperate measures. She began pawning off the family's treasures, often nudging visitors to go shopping, as she and little Edie put it. She sold Tiffany silver, antique jewelry, and Bouvier heirlooms, sometimes straight from under her mattress. Sadly, even these desperate efforts weren't enough. By the 1970s, Big Edie had all but given up any pretense of normalcy. Grey Gardens, once a spectacular Hamptons home, had become an infamous wreck. In October 1971, local authorities raided the estate. What they found was a crumbling house filled with litter, reeking of cats, and in violation of numerous local ordinances. But Big Edie had no intention of leaving her decaying paradise. At this point, she wasn't just an eccentric socialite living life on her own terms. She was teetering on the brink of homelessness. The Suffolk County Board of Health declared Grey Gardens uninhabitable and prepared to evict Big Edie and her daughter. It seemed only a matter of time before she'd be out on the street. Until an unexpected savior stepped in. Jackie Kennedy Onassis, the former First Lady and Big Edie's niece, intervened alongside her sister, Lee Radsville, to avoid further scandal. The two socialites reportedly paid thousands to clean up Grey Gardens, allowing Big Edie to stay put, for better or worse. Saving Grey Gardens wasn't as simple as dusting off a few antiques. Big Edie's family reportedly shelled out $30,000 to restore the home, clear back taxes, and stop the town from auctioning it off. After the intervention from her famous relatives, Big Edie managed to keep a roof over her head, but her financial troubles deepened. With no income of her own, she and little Edie relied on a family stipend. By then, however, even the Bouvier Trust Fund had run dry. Fortunately, an unexpected source of income was just around the corner. As word of Big Edie's strange and secluded life spread, filmmakers Albert and David Maysles couldn't help but be intrigued. They first met Big Edie and Little Edie in 1971 when Lee Radziwill hired them to produce a film about the Bouvier family. That initial footage never saw the light of day, but their encounter with the infamous Edies planted a seed in the brothers' minds for a very different kind of film.
For exclusive perks like early access to new videos, priority replies to your comments, and to have your say on future content, consider becoming a Factinate member. On top of that, your support helps keep the channel going. Click the link in the description for more details.
In 1973, the brothers secured permission to create a cinema verite documentary about the mother and daughter duo. What followed was a raw, unfiltered glimpse into the eccentric world of Grey Gardens, one that sparked immediate controversy. When the Maysles rolled their cameras, Big Edie didn't hold back. Her moment in the spotlight had arrived. The resulting documentary captured both women often speaking over one another in a swirl of chaotic, rambling conversation. Big Edie never lost her love for music and her sense of artistic whimsy and wonder. She reminisced about her perfect marriage, beautiful children, and her once promising musical career. And just to prove she still had it, she treated the filmmakers to a full-throated rendition of Tea for Two, but Big Edie wasn't the only one eager to share. Little Edie had plenty of grievances to air. She openly blamed her mother for keeping her trapped at Grey Gardens, robbing her of the life she'd dreamed of in Manhattan. She recalled how 2 decades earlier, she had been forced to leave the Barbizon Hotel and return home, effectively ending her independence and tethering her to her eccentric mother. Little Edie even exposed some of Big Edie's most outrageous secrets. As the state of the mansion made clear, Big Edie had no interest in housekeeping, least of all in managing the countless cats that roamed the property. As Little Edie complained, "My mother doesn't believe in kitty litter. She prefers boxes and paper." And that was hardly the strangest behavior the cameras captured. Big Edie and Little Edie dined on ice cream with knives and used utensils in ways that defied logic. One of their more curious habits, balancing peas on the edge of a knife before eating them. Despite receiving some proceeds from the film, Big Edie's financial troubles only deepened. Things were far worse than most people realized. In secret, she applied for food stamps with the help of her friend Lois Wright, carefully concealing just how dire her situation had become. And yet, she seemed content. When Grey Gardens debuted in theaters, critics couldn't agree. Was the film an intimate portrait or an act of exploitation? Big Edie, however, had no such doubts. "They're very nice people," she said of the filmmakers. To her, the documentary wasn't an invasion, it was her long overdue moment in the spotlight. And she absolutely adored being in it. Rather than feeling humiliated by the film's depiction of her crumbling mansion and unconventional lifestyle, Big Edie embraced it wholeheartedly. "It's the greatest thing that ever happened to me in my old age." But her final high came just before a hard fall. In 1976, just as her star was finally rising, Big Edie suffered a devastating accident. A terrible fall left her dependent on a wheelchair. Already in frail health, she grew weaker with each passing month. Through it all, Little Edie remained by her side, caring for her mother amid the decay of Grey Gardens. On February 5, 1977, Big Edie sang her final song. She passed away from pneumonia at Southampton Hospital. Reportedly, when little Edie asked if she had any last words, her mother gave a simple, poignant reply. "There's nothing more to say. It's all in the film." If you enjoyed this Factinate video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more incredible stories. Want to say who we cover next? Join our membership program through the link in the description for exclusive perks. Your support means everything to us. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.